Wealth beyond your wildest dreams, the power that knows no bounds, and a legacy that continues to live on. This is the story of Pablo Escobar, the richest criminal in history. He rose from obscurity to become one of the most notorious and feared drug lords of all time, leaving a trail of death and destruction in his wake. But how did a young man from a working-class family become the richest criminal in history? And what was the source of his incredible wealth? From his early days as a petty criminal to the formation of the powerful Medellin cartel, this is the story of Pablo Escobar, the king of cocaine. Before moving on, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to extend your support. Pablo Escobar, the notorious Colombian drug lord, continues to capture the public's imagination long after his death. He was known for his ruthless tactics, immense wealth, and the sheer scale of his empire, which made him one of the richest people in the world. In this video, we will take a deep dive into the world of Pablo Escobar and explore just how rich he was. So, without any further ado, let's get started. The early years. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born in Rio Negro, a small town in the Antioquia department of Colombia. He grew up in poverty, with his father working as a farmer and his mother as a schoolteacher. Escobar's early life was characterized by petty crime, and he soon moved on to more serious offenses. He began selling stolen goods and eventually became involved in the drug trade. From a young age, he showed a flair for business and entrepreneurship, selling stolen tombstones as a teenager to make some extra money. As he grew older, Escobar became involved in a variety of criminal activities, including smuggling cigarettes and stealing cars. He also began to engage in the production and distribution of cocaine, which was still a relatively new and unknown drug in the 1970s. The rise of the Medellin cartel. In the 1970s, Escobar became a member of the Medellin cartel, which was the most powerful drug syndicate in Colombia at the time. The cartel was responsible for exporting cocaine to the United States and other countries in massive quantities. In the 1970s, the global demand for cocaine was on the rise, and the Medellin cartel was quick to take advantage of this trend. Led by Pablo Escobar, the cartel became the most powerful drug trafficking organization in the world, controlling up to 80% of the global cocaine market at its peak. Escobar quickly rose to the top of the organization, becoming one of its leading figures. The life of luxury. Pablo Escobar lived life in the fast lane, indulging in all the trappings of wealth and luxury. He owned numerous properties, including a luxurious estate in Medellin called Hacienda Naples, which was equipped with its own private zoo and amusement park. He also owned several private islands, as well as a fleet of yachts, private jets, and helicopters. Despite his reputation as a brutal criminal, Escobar was known for his charitable endeavors, using his wealth to fund schools, hospitals, and housing projects in the poor communities of Colombia. He was seen as a Robin Hood figure by many in the country, and his popularity only increased as he used his wealth to gain influence and power. The height of Escobar's wealth. During the 1980s, the Medellin cartel had an estimated annual revenue of $30 billion, with over 80% of the global cocaine market under their control. At the center of this operation was Pablo Escobar, who was estimated to be making around $420 million per week. This translates to roughly $60 million per day, an astonishing amount of money by any standards. Escobar's wealth was so vast that he had trouble finding places to store his cash, leading him to bury it in fields, keep it in plastic bags, and store it in warehouses. Escobar's extravagant spending habits were legendary. He owned a luxurious estate named Hacienda Naples, which included a private zoo with exotic animals like elephants and hippos. He also had a fleet of planes and helicopters, and even bought a submarine for transporting drugs. In addition to these large purchases, Escobar also bought numerous other properties, including apartments, mansions, and hotels. But Escobar was not just concerned with accumulating wealth. He was also notorious for his violence and brutality. He ordered the deaths of countless people, including police officers, journalists, and politicians who stood in his way. He was responsible for the bombing of a commercial airliner that killed 107 people, and for the murder of thousands of people who were caught up in his web of drug trafficking. The fall of Escobar. Despite his immense wealth and power, Pablo Escobar's reign was marked by unprecedented violence and brutality. He was responsible for the deaths of thousands of people, including judges, politicians, and journalists, and his ruthless tactics had made him the most feared drug lord in the world. In 1991, Escobar surrendered to the Colombian government after years of evading law enforcement. He struck a deal that would allow him to serve his sentence in a luxurious prison of his own design called La Catedral. The conditions in the prison were akin to those of a resort, and Escobar continued to run his drug empire from behind bars. The Colombian government soon realized that Escobar was still running his organization from the safety of La Catedral, and in 1992, they made the decision to transfer him to a different facility. This move proved to be a pivotal moment in the hunt for Escobar. Fearing extradition to the US, Escobar decided to go on the run, and he became a fugitive once again. The authorities launched a massive manhunt, using every resource at their disposal to track down the elusive drug lord. In 1993, after months of being on the run, Escobar was finally located in a safe house in Medellin. The Colombian National Police, with the help of a US task force, launched a daring raid on the property. A firefight broke out, and in the chaos, Escobar was shot and killed. His brutal reign had finally come to an end. The legacy of Escobar. The legacy of Pablo Escobar continues to be felt today, not just in Colombia but around the world. He left behind a trail of destruction and death, and his activities have had a lasting impact on the drug trade and the communities affected by it. One of the most significant aspects of Escobar's legacy is the impact of the drug trade on communities around the world. While it's easy to be fascinated by Escobar's wealth and lifestyle, it's important to remember the human cost of his activities. Drug addiction and abuse have torn apart countless families and communities, and the violence associated with drug trafficking has left a trail of destruction in its wake. The impact of the drug trade is not limited to Colombia or other countries where drugs are produced. It affects people all over the world, including the United States, where drug abuse has led to a public health crisis that has claimed countless lives. The lessons of Escobar's life. In conclusion, the story of Pablo Escobar is one that continues to fascinate and intrigue people around the world. While his wealth and power were extraordinary, they were also built on a foundation of violence and brutality. The legacy of his actions continues to be felt today as the drug trade continues to ravage communities and destroy lives. As we look to the future, it's important to remember the lessons of Escobar's life and work towards creating a more just and equitable society for all. By addressing the root causes of drug addiction and working towards a world where all people have access to the resources they need to thrive, we can create a brighter future for generations to come. It's also important to remember that individuals like Escobar are not simply evil masterminds, but rather products of complex social, economic, and political systems. Therefore, a comprehensive approach is needed to address the issues of drug addiction, poverty, and inequality that underpin the drug trade and the power structures that enable it. The enduring fascination with Escobar. Despite the devastation that the drug trade has wrought, the story of Pablo Escobar continues to captivate people around the world. Numerous movies, TV shows, and books have been made about his life, and he has become a cultural icon in his own right. The reasons for this enduring fascination are complex. On the one hand, Escobar represents the ultimate rags-to-riches story, a man who rose from poverty to become one of the richest and most powerful people in the world. On the other hand, his story is a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of power and wealth and the consequences of unchecked greed and violence. Ultimately, the story of Pablo Escobar is a reminder of the complex and often tragic nature of human history. While we may be captivated by the wealth and power of individuals like Escobar, we must also remember the human cost of their actions and work towards creating a better future for all. Concluding our discussion, the life of Pablo Escobar is a story that continues to fascinate and intrigue people around the world. His wealth, power, and influence were unmatched, but they were also built on a foundation of violence, corruption, and greed. The legacy of his actions continues to be felt today as the drug trade continues to devastate communities and destroy lives.